On this episode of Where's the Line, me and Joseph are going to talk about Tennessee and Texas A&M, as well as Georgia versus Vanderbilt. Then we're going to take a deep dive into the mind of Joe Milton and preview Tennessee versus Alabama. It's the third Saturday in October. Gambling is at the end. It's episode number 102. Let's get into it.
You are now listening to the Where's the Line podcast with Joseph West and Britt Dillard. Enjoy the show.
Milton gonna take a shot wide open and just strutting in is Keaton. Joe Milton does it again.
Orgy again on a blitz. Levis pocket collapses. He's on the run. He just heaves it up. And it's intercepted by Vanderbilt. And let the celebration begin. The streak is over at 26. The Commodores win it.
Talk about Vanderbilt football. All I gotta say, and you're going to hell. Bye.
Another edition of Where's the Line. It is Tuesday, October 17th. This is episode number 102. Week 7 of college football has come and gone. I'm sitting here with my good friend, Joseph West. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Britt. It's Tuesday. Made it through at least 2 days of the work week here. And I don't feel embarrassed. So that's where we'll start. How are you?
That's good. I'm also, I guess I'm not embarrassed. I had a good day today. But we're here. We're alive.
We back.
And we're recording. We're providing a service for the public, and I'm excited about it.
Listen, this is all that matters right here. Good teams win. Great teams cover. Vanderbilt covered the spread on Saturday. That's just how it is. Vanderbilt lost to Georgia.
I think that saying means when you win by more points than you were favored by.
Listen, I don't care. Good teams win. Great teams cover. Vanderbilt covered the spread on Saturday. Britt is trying to be a realist. I'm not. Okay, so Vanderbilt lost, as I was saying, 37-20. Early look at this game. When you look at how this game played out, it was a lot closer than the final score says. Vanderbilt scored a touchdown with, I believe it was 5 to go. C.J. Taylor got a pick on Carson Beck to take it all the way down to basically the half-yard line. And then Vanderbilt scored and had a 2-point conversion attempt to cut it to 8. They didn't get it. So it was a 10-point game there at the end for a second. There's a lot of things to talk about this game, but I just wanted to say that Vanderbilt finally covered the spread, and we're also 8-0 on the over, and that's where I wanted to start.
Yeah, I was watching this game either on a cell phone or on a TV that I passed walking through Knoxville. Was surprised as I looked at it. I haven't got to watch much of the game at all other than just in passing, so I don't have much to contribute.
Britt literally texted me and said, "What is going on?" when Vanderbilt was up 7-0 and we had the ball. Vanderbilt's defense honestly came to play early. I mean, that's a great way to put it. If you look overall at the stats of this game, you're not going to be thrilled with Vanderbilt giving up 552 total yards. But ultimately, Vanderbilt got several stops to give their offense a chance. They would let Georgia drive down the field, and then all of a sudden they would just stand up like a cat in the red zone or at 30 and make Georgia settle for field goals. So I honestly thought Vanderbilt's defense had a better day. Vanderbilt once again cannot win the turnover battle. Or no, I'm sorry. Vanderbilt did finally win the turnover battle. I take that back. We did win the turnover. But it didn't obviously result in a win. If Vanderbilt plays with this amount of heart, I guess you want to say, or maybe just doesn't screw up as much as they have in past games, in against Wake Forest, UNLV, and Kentucky, they win. They win all of those games. It's not close either. They win all three of them, and we're not near as sad. But you didn't. And so I will say this before I get into any of the positives: there are no moral victories. I saw a lot of Vanderbilt fans try to play moral victory mode, and that is not true. There are no moral victories. This is not a win. This is not a dub. I'm just not embarrassed to be a Vanderbilt fan, which is nice. We did not get embarrassed off the field, which is nice. So two different things I want to talk about first. One is Clark Lee. At times, I don't know if it's him or his staff. Maybe he lets his staff make too many decisions. But at times, this coaching staff are cowards. When you're punting the ball against the number one team in the nation with under 6 minutes to go and you're down by 14, you're down by 16, you're a coward. You are 31.5-point underdogs. You are 2-5. There is no reason to punt the ball. I wouldn't have punted in the first quarter. We would have went for it every time. We would have never punted. Now, I'm not saying don't punt against Wake Forest, but against Georgia, why punt? Everything had to go right for you to win this game, so give a chance for everything to go right. They didn't. They got bailed out that Carson Beck sucks and CJ Taylor is a dog. It made them look better than they really are. So let me start there. But also, with that being said, there are a lot of positives to take from this. First of all, Vanderbilt may have, I'm just going to say it, Vanderbilt might have the best defensive player in the SEC in CJ Taylor. He is that good. He's everywhere. He's just, if it's not him making the play, it doesn't get made. He's everywhere. He's better than Anthony Orji. He's better than defensive guys we had in the past. He's not better than, I won't say he's better than Zach Cunningham yet, but he's that good to impact the game he did get hurt. Okay. On a significant level. So that is that. But that's kind of where I sit with this game. There are no moral victories, but I was proud of at least the effort to at least see that the players gave a damn at certain points. Ken Seals, I thought, had a solid day. He threw a pick right before half that a lot of people were mad about. I wasn't really that upset about it. But I mean, he went 19 of 29 for 201 yards. His stats don't blow you away. Defensively is where I'm going to focus a lot. Jalen Mahoney had a good day. CJ Taylor obviously had a big day. He had 7 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss, a pick, a pass deflected. Like I said, dude was absolutely everywhere. DeCosmo had a sack. His sack also resulted in a forced fumble right there on the first drive of the game for Georgia, where he absolutely lit back up. Ultimately, when I look at this team and I'm looking through this roster, this team is super young. It just is. And that's the only way to look at this game and say this is why you have some hope. I'm just going to read off some stats here and tell you who they're coming back. Mahoney was the leading tackler with 16 total tackles and 10 solo. He's gone after this year. CJ Taylor could come back. He obviously could transfer or go to the draft, but he had 7 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Already went through his. Savion Riley, he's coming back. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. Had 7 total tackles, 4 solo. Langston Patterson, 6 total tackles, 4 solo. Brian Longwell, true freshman. Let's see. He had 5 total tackles, 1 solo. Miles Capers, another guy who's got 2 years left. 4 total tackles, 2 solo. You just had guys. Miles Capers was in the backfield all day. He's coming back. Gumbo Gaskins. His name's actually Quantavious, but we call him Quantavious Gumbo Gaskins. Dude has a legendary name. I love saying it. It was his first game he ever got to play in. He played against Georgia. He held his own. PFF grade him, had him just above average in the low 80s, or I think he was an 80. So shout out Gumbo. To be your first game against the number 1 team in the nation, he really hung in there. I say all that to say this. Vanderbilt has
Shout
their
out
best.
Gumbo.
Yeah, shout out Gumbo for real.
My bad.
Vanderbilt has their best recruiting class since James Franklin, and I don't really know how much that means right now, but if they keep these guys, it means something. Vanderbilt is obviously investing for the first time in their lives. We just got another recruit yesterday that actually means something, who has big-time offers. I don't know who threw the bag to our NIL team, but thank you. Someone obviously has. Vanderbilt's not getting these guys without NIL money. No one said anything. There's no updates on it. I can't get any information on NIL, but someone has to be throwing these kids money. It has to be. So I don't know what else to say besides I am kind of excited about the future, and I'm really trying to tone it down because I do understand that we're 2-6 right now. But Vanderbilt's investing. We have the best recruiting class since James Franklin left. We're top 40. I mean, I think we're, depending on what site you're looking on, we're somewhere from 36 to 40, just depending on where you're looking. We have 2 top 300 players, 1 in the top 150. I mean, I think if this season, if Vanderbilt had 4 wins right now, I would be unhinged. If Vanderbilt just had 4 wins right now, I think I would be unhinged about the future and just where we were looking. The only reason it's hard, a lot of Vanderbilt fans are so negative, is because we lost to UNLV. If we didn't lose to UNLV, this season is way, way, way different. But Clark Lee bozo coordinators allowed it to happen, and that's why still fire Nick Howell and Joey Lynch. I do not care. Fire both of them. Also, shout out to the Vanderbilt football team. Several of the guys I got to meet at Nashville Nightmare. That was really cool. Shout out Will Shepard. Shout out Jade McGowan. Those guys, they some dogs. Shout out to those guys. They were very nice to a super insane fan like myself. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's
All right,
very
good
much
information, Britt.
okay. Just interrupt me. Vanderbilt is very much in a marathon and not a sprint right now. So hats off to you for being reasonable. And it's hard not to be after playing what some people think is the best team in the country. So kind of have to temper your expectations there. They're not the best team in the country.
No, and that leads us to this right here. Britt, anything else you'd like to say about Vanderbilt? I don't think so, but just want to make sure before I cut you off.
Go ahead.
Cool. That leads me to this. Britt, playoff starts next week if it did, and you were the guy picking. Who's your 4 teams in the playoff?
I'm just going to run.
Let's not word it like that. Let's not. Actually, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change the credentials here. 4 teams. Who do you think are going to be the 4 teams in the playoff at the end of the season? That's how I want to word it.
Okay, in no particular order.
Got it.
Washington.
Okay.
Ohio State. Florida State. Georgia.
Can I get those one more time?
Washington, Ohio State, Florida State, Georgia. My reasoning for not having 2 Big Ten teams in, and you can swap out Ohio State for Michigan if you would like. I think it could be either one of those. I think Penn State is good enough this year to knock one of those out and prevent both of them from going to the playoff and just leaving one in. I think Washington had a big win Saturday against a very good team in Oregon. I think Florida State is in a fairly easy conference. And I think Georgia, even though I said they're not the best team, I still think they could win it all. I don't know if they play down to competition. I don't know if they're not, I don't want to say poorly coached, but they definitely play to the level of their competition, which I think is a coaching issue. But those are the 4 I see in. I don't have a lot of faith in Georgia, but I think they're in the playoff.
Yeah, I agree with Britt here. I think Georgia makes the playoff as well. Bowers being out with tightrope surgery on his ankle, I think definitely changes things, as I've heard that he's going to come back for the Tennessee game. That still leaves them without Bowers for the Florida game, which is a huge rivalry game, obviously. Leaves them out Bowers for the Ole Miss game and the Missouri game. Now, luckily, they get Missouri at home in Athens, so that makes a big difference. And Florida game's at a neutral site, but I believe it's in Jacksonville, which sucks, by the way, for Georgia. That is so stupid to play that. If I was Georgia, I would never do that again, but that's not the point. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I think I have my questions about Georgia with Britt, and especially without Brock Bowers. But anyways, my 4 teams, in no particular order, just like Britt. I'm gonna go Georgia, Michigan, Oregon. Oregon's gonna get their get back at Washington in the. I just totally lost what conference they're in. Oh my gosh, Pac-12.
Pac-12.
Pac-12. They're gonna get their get back in the Pac-12. And I don't see how you leave them out if they beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship. I really don't. But if they're the Pac-12 champs, I don't see how you leave them out. Maybe I could be wrong, but if they if they win the rest of their games and meet Washington again, then how do you leave them out? And honestly, I may need to check if they're in the same side of the conference because they could be. They may not get an opportunity to meet them back. I didn't even check that. So, anyways, not the point.
It's a good point.
Brett, are you looking at that? No? Okay. Georgia,
No.
Michigan. I'm gonna leave that Oregon pick off for now. I'm gonna say Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and then either Washington or Oregon. If Oregon can meet them back, which I'm fixing to look at, I like Oregon more than I like Washington. I think Michigan is the best team in the country. That's not a shocker. I thought they were a better team than they were last year. It's really simple. Michigan is blowing everybody out. Anybody they face, they're spanking them and sending them home. It's over at halftime. They're pulling their starters, and they've got Jack Tuttle and all their backups in the second half. Georgia's not doing that. Florida State even hasn't done that. So I think Michigan, I don't think they should be number one in the polls because Georgia's won back-to-back national championships. I think it's hard to move them if they don't lose. So with that being said, I just think Michigan is the best team in the country. I don't know if they necessarily deserve to be number one.
I don't hate putting Michigan in there. When you look at last year's playoff, it's having an elite quarterback is so important. I mean, look at last year's playoff. You had Max Duggan, you had C.J. Stroud, you had J.J. McCarthy, and you had Stetson Bennett. Those are 4 very good college quarterbacks. And I think that's what it takes to win a national championship, along with a lot of other stuff. So maybe Michigan is a better pick over Ohio State. I can't even tell you who Ohio State's quarterback is. Some nerdy Big Ten white guy. I don't know. So I don't hate Michigan there. Our 4 picks are very similar. It's just down to whoever wins the Big Ten and the Pac-12.
By the way, I do not think, or it does not look like, from what I'm seeing, I did not know this. I will not act like a brainiac here. I didn't know this, but it doesn't look like Pac-12 actually has 2 different regions like we do. Just like it's one big free-for-all, what the SEC will be going to soon enough, I believe. So Oregon may not get their shot. So if not, it's Washington. I would agree with that. And that leads me to this. If I had to pick the Heisman winner right now, I don't want any part of Michael Penix, or Penix, or however you want to say his last name.
Penis.
Yeah, it's Big Penix energy, according to Desmond Howard. Speaking of Desmond Howard, I want Michigan's quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, has played less quarters. He's putting up amazing stats. Dude, in my book's the Heisman. I put $25 on him 2 weeks ago, so my money's riding on him. I'm riding with him. J.J. McCarthy for Heisman right now. I'll start it. Caleb, Ian, I know there's another Michigan listener. Brady, shout out to y'all 3. I'm riding with you. Go Blue. J.J. McCarthy for Heisman.
Okay, 2 things. I think if you asked me this a week ago, I would say Caleb Williams. Just because he's so talented. And he's so loved by the media, I would say Caleb Williams. But he had such a terrible performance Saturday that I think he may have just eliminated himself from that. I think if I was a normie, I would say Michael Penix Jr. because that's what everybody's saying. So I don't want to be a normie, and I don't want to be wrong. So I'm going to step out on a limb and have a hot take for Heisman.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Jaden Daniels, LSU.
There's actually been a lot of people saying that. I don't necessarily know if it's hot. It might be warm, but I don't know if it's hot.
I think it's a hot take just because LSU has 2 losses and hasn't looked exactly impressive. But Jaden Daniels has 2,300 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. I mean, he's right up there with Penix and Williams. I didn't pull up J.J. McCarthy. He honestly didn't even cross my mind. But Michigan, they're so stealth. They don't show themselves until week 10, week 11.
Yeah, that's the thing about Michigan. Michigan's going to rely on their bread and butter until all of a sudden they play Penn State and Ohio State, and they're going to bring out the whole playbook. Then they're going to bring out everything,
That must be
and then
nice.
obviously do stuff as well in the playoff. But to read JJ McCarthy stats, because I do have them pulled up, he has thrown for 1,512 yards, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. He also has 160 rushing yards with 3 touchdowns, with a 92.6 QBR rating and 5 less quarters than those guys that Brett named. No, I'm sorry, 4 less quarters than Penix, I think, and 5 less than Jaden, I want to say. Or I could have that backwards. I didn't write it down. I should have. Regardless, like I said, he's gotten pulled in back-to-back games at basically halftime or into the third quarter. I mean, it's hard to justify when he's got, what was Jaden Daniels' passing yards, Brett, one more time?
2,294.
Right. So you're looking at he's got about 700, 800 yards less than I almost said Jaden Daniels. But I don't know. I just like McCarthy more. I hope the Raiders draft McCarthy. I love everything I see from McCarthy. So that's where I'm at with him.
Michigan
There's our house.
quarterbacks that are not good. Joe Milton with Tennessee Volunteers. If we're going to get into the Tennessee talk, is your
Let's go.
heart clear? Are you ready to go?
My heart's clear. Go Doors, baby.
Go Doors. Tennessee beat Texas A&M 20-13 Saturday night. Joseph, you hit the nail on the head. Defensive game, low scoring game. And Tennessee fans were shocked. We've never seen Josh Heupel win a game scoring less than 30 points. We haven't seen Josh Heupel win a game trailing at halftime at Tennessee. So a gritty win, one that I have seen Tennessee lose so many times. So I think it's a big win for the program as a whole. Yes, it is an unranked Texas A&M team coming off a loss, an emotional loss at home. But Tennessee in the past loses this game. So it is nice. It does feel good to win it. Neyland Stadium, I mean, I've been watching football in Neyland Stadium regularly, I would say, for eight years probably. And in that time, it's definitely at its peak. It may be at its peak all time. I mean, I wasn't alive in the 90s, but that place is just consistently sold out and insane. But that's just kind of some opening points. I've got takeaways, but I'll let Joseph speak.
Thank you. First of all, I want to let all UT fans know this. You may think I'm a hater. Listen to this podcast. I have this UT team figured out. Okay, I decided that today. When I put a lot of time into the breakdown of this A&M game and into the Alabama game, and you'll see I have a lot of stats about Alabama versus Tennessee and why I'm picking who I am. Tennessee is 5-1 right now, and betting on Tennessee this year, I am 6-0, and I'm obviously 6-0 in picking the games as well, as far as who's going to win and the spread. I believe I did pick against Tennessee once on this podcast, but I did not actually on my bet slip. So my point is that I really do think I have this Tennessee team figured out. I think I know who they are. I think I know what they're going to do and how they're going to beat you, and what they have to do in order to win games. Like when they're playing Texas A&M, like when they play Bama next week. And ultimately, when I watch this game, and I'm not trying to be boastful here at all, but it played out exactly how I thought. I thought on the first drive, when Max Johnson drove A&M down and scored, I was like, oh crap, A&M might hang a lot of points. And then things slowed down, and I was like, okay, never mind. It's playing out kind of how I thought. This was a defensive game. And my opening thought is this. When Tennessee, last year, you looked at their defense, Tennessee only had one game where they eclipsed more than 25 minutes time of possession last year. One. It was Ball State. That was it. That's the only game they eclipsed 25 minutes time of possession. This year, I'll get into their time of possession in a second, actually. My point is going to be is that when you have better depth and more rest time, your defense is going to play better. And I don't know if, like, all Tennessee fans are kind of comprehending that. I think they think their defense just went from, like, 0 to 150 out of nowhere. No, it kind of makes sense. You got better depth, right? It's year 3 under Heupel, correct? Year 3 under Heupel. So
And your offense got worse, so they have
it's
more
his,
time to rest.
and maybe your offense did get worse by statistics for sure, and your offense got worse. You're relying more on the run game, which I'll talk a lot about, but this is just my opening statement. So I wanted to start there. I guess my opening statement is I think I have this Tennessee team figured out.
Yeah, I think you've picked them on the podcast right. I think you're 6-0.
I couldn't remember. So I couldn't remember. I thought I bet against them on like a off weird game, like an out of conference game. I thought it was too many points, but I could be incorrect. So we'll just say I'm undefeated. I'm fine with
I
I'm
mean,
fine with saying
I know you
lost.
picked them to lose to Florida, and I think every other game you
Yeah,
said we would win,
right.
just outright. Um, I'm gonna get into takeaways. I've got a lot I want to talk about.
Okay. Are we
Your
gonna go one?
defense.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna
Read all
read all
three.
mine. Yeah.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Your defense, like I've said all year, has taken a step, and it's really Rodney Garner and the front seven has improved so much. And like Joseph said, the depth is just there now. You've recruited well and you've developed well. James Pierce Jr. He's a first round draft pick in the draft next year. He's an absolute beast. He's in the backfield. It said he had a pressure rate like 36% of snaps. He's in the backfield.
Let me add this in just real quick while we're talking about James Pierce. Apparently, there's like 3 guys this year that I've been watching, and on sports they just lusted over this man James Pierce. Like in the high school recruiting, they were like, "This dude is
Yes.
amazing. This
Yeah.
dude is flawless. This dude is going to be a beast." And the other sides weren't quite as high on Pierce. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Clark Brooks and On Sports. They were so high on Pierce, and he's been a dog for Tennessee. Brett, didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
No, he was like borderline top 150 in other sites, and then on 3 he's like a top 12 player, number 1 in the state, number 2 edge defender in the country. So they for sure are awesome there. But your improvements on the defensive line and how that trickles down to the secondary is very evident. Your secondary has been helped out a ton by your front seven, by your offense kind of flipping the way they play, which in turn gives them a lot more time to rest, depth at that position, development, just everything it has come together for the secondary to help them improve. Kamal hadn't had another interception on the season. Looking at PFF grades, 86.5, that's 4th in the country among cornerbacks. Coverage, 90.3, that's 2nd in the nation. 33 targets for 12 catches, that's 36% reception rate. He's allowed 96 yards, 7 pass breakups, and 3 interceptions. He's played lights out. He got cheered when we read the starting lineup. When the previous home game, he got showered with boos. He's just shown great improvement. Which has been awesome to see. But the key here is that your defense and all that I just said there, in combination with your special teams, won you this game. You were able to down a punt on the inch-yard line, which led to a punt return for a touchdown. Those 2 things are what won you this game. Key number 2, the offensive line and the run attack. You were able to run all over a Texas A&M front seven that is really good. Jalen Wright had over 130 yards. Jalen Wright is a guy that Tennessee fans are going to look back and say, if Jalen Wright had better, and I don't want to step on what I'm going to talk about later, but if Jalen Wright had a better team around him, he would be so special. But I've said all year he's the best player on this team. Offensively, Jalen Wright's the best player on the team. Offensive line has figured it out. Had some guys go down, but guys step up. I mean, Dane Davis played like 30 snaps and was absolutely road grading people. Cooper Mays is just amazing. But your offensive line has figured out you're running the ball as good as anybody in the country. And that's the identity that we've adopted. And I don't think that was the plan. But I think once we figured out what we were working with, hey, our defense is much improved. It's pretty good. We can run the ball very well. Why don't we just focus on what we're good at and roll with that? And my third takeaway, and I'm just going to touch on it, and then I'm going to let you talk, but then I want to come back to it. Joe Milton. Joe Milton is not good. And I've been saying it. And go to Twitter and look at my avatar and see what it says. Because it ain't there no more. It ain't there no more. Joe Milton is bad, and I am mad. Joseph, go ahead.
At some point, first of all, I do want to clarify something. I lost a board bet. I do owe Britt Dillard a big stake for Joe Milton starting the Texas A&M game, but Britt may not even want it. That's obviously like I'm joking. I'm going to get this man a stake because I bet it, but I'm going to say that because ultimately my case to be made for Joe Milton before the season, I think, is correct overall looking back. It was, can you find consistency from Joe Milton? Can Joe Milton make the throws he's supposed to make? And I don't know if he can. I would like to say that I don't know if it's all on Joe Milton. Looking at some of the PFF grades from separation of the wide receivers, a lot of Tennessee's wide receivers have struggled to get open at times outside of really Squirrel White when you're looking at the grades. Ramel Keaton shows flashes. You no longer have Brew McCoy. And outside of that, no one's great. When I watched this game, I thought Tennessee did everything they had to do to win. First of all, Tennessee going forward is going to have to do two things. Do all the little things. Britt touched on special teams, which was actually my first point too. So Britt, shout out to you for that. Special teams was great for Tennessee. They went down the punt at, like Britt said, I was going to say it like the half-inch yard line. Britt said inch. I'm fine with that. And then they had to punt from the very back of the end zone, and A&M punter took a half a step, and it went like 40 yards, and D. Williams took it to the crib. So great return by Williams. We know that he's electric. But I just want to touch on what Tennessee did against A&M that they didn't do any last year, which was their time of possession was 29 and a half minutes. I don't know if Tennessee fans remember, that was unheard of last year. You didn't see Tennessee hold the ball for 29 minutes. Tennessee controlled the game. They ran it down A&M's throat basically at will. They had 232 rushing yards on this game. Tennessee is leading the SEC in yards per carry, 5.8 yards per carry. And they're also averaging 231.33 rushing yards per game, which is also the highest in the SEC. So Tennessee's run attack is very good. Let's stop talking like this offense. Just because this offense isn't throwing 65-yard bombs doesn't mean that this offense isn't good. I think that this team has almost gotten crapped on too much from Tennessee fans because of Joe Milton's lackluster quarterback play, and maybe even some on the receivers, and maybe I think it's a little bit of blame everywhere. You miss Alex Golesh. Maybe even if he wasn't calling the plays, he was at least whispering in he was whispering in Josh Heupel's ear a little bit, helping him out. And when you have a guy you've been with, like Heupel had been with Golesh, he trusts him, right? That's important for a guy like Heupel. And like a lot of Tennessee fans blew it off because you still had Heupel, but it is important. So I just think that Tennessee's recipe to success the rest of this year is going to be to rely on the run game. Listen, when you look across the SEC, and Britt, I want you to think about this. I'm going to form this as a question. Look around the SEC. How many quarterbacks are elite in the SEC? 1? 2? I would be scared to say more than 2. I really would. This conference does not have elite quarterbacks this year.
And even though I completely agree with that, there are 7 or 8 SEC quarterbacks I would rather have than Joe Milton.
I wasn't taking it comparing them to Joe Milton at all. What I was going to say was, what I was going to use the point as is that I think UT can win several games down the stretch just because of below average quarterback play, and Tennessee's going to control the pace of the game with the run. As long as also, I will comment on this. Ollie Lane is garbage. I don't know how UT fans feel about him, but I wasn't very impressed with him when I was watching the game. Went back and got the PFF grade. I want to say he was a 50.7. I will pull that back up to make sure that I'm not shorting this man Ollie Lane real quick as I
Yeah,
try to
he's
scroll over
not
to this
great, and
screenshot.
not only is he not great, but he commits penalties, and that's something that Josh Heupel's teams have always
Yes.
been very heavily penalized.
Ollie Lane had a 50.8 PFF grade in 77 plays. And by the way, I gave him a lot of credit, but Squirrel White had a 59 in 58 plays. So, like I said, I don't really know how much blame I can put on Joe Milton, but when you put up a stat line like, and let me make sure I don't get this wrong either, 11 for 22 with 100 yards, I'm asking questions. It's
Yeah,
several.
yeah. And I have a few points, and I don't think you're defending Joe Milton, but you're kind of trying to have reasons
No,
why that there
I'm
may be
playing a
some
little bit of
struggles going
devil's
on.
advocate. I'm playing a little bit of devil's
So
advocate here.
a lot of the points I have arguments against playing Nico. One, you said the receivers may be a problem. Our receivers have dropped more passes this year. Think back to last year. Think back to last Tennessee season. How many passes, Tennessee fans, do you remember our receivers straight up dropping? I don't remember any. I'm sure there were some. I can't think of any. And if you look specifically at Ramel Keaton's drop Saturday, wide open, that man is used to the ball coming at him at 115 miles an hour. So when he sees it coming at him at 20 miles an hour, he's thrown off. When you're running a route across the middle, full speed, the ball's 2 feet behind you. There, you have to make mental adjustments. And while they can be made, if you're Calvin Johnson or Calvin Ridley or any other Calvin,
Okay,
a,
Calvin.
a, a college kid like Hendon Hooker threw the same ball every throw. He threw the same ball. And all the receiver had to do, all he had to think about doing was connecting his hands to the ball. Our receivers are having to do trigonometry problems when the ball's in the air because Joe Milton, you don't know how hard he's going to throw it. And that's why it makes me so angry. And people, I don't know why we accept mediocrity. Why do we defend Joe Milton so bad that we're going to accept 8-4 this year? Tennessee will go 8-4 with Joe Milton. I will call it right now. Tennessee goes 8-4. When you throw a pass, a bad pass, I don't care if it touches your hands 10 times. If it's 150 miles an hour, 3 feet over your head, that is not on the receiver. Can we open our brains as redneck Tennessee fans and realize that some passes are easier to catch than others? I don't care if it hits you in the hands. I don't care if it hits you in the hands. If it's 3 feet behind you and you're running full speed, it's a bad pass. That's not on the receiver.
I will open up the sentence of, if it hits your hands in stride, I don't care if he threw it 250 miles per hour, you better catch it. If it hits your hands in stride, you better catch the football. But if it's behind you or way up high, or like you're running like a deep post and it's not really behind you but kind of straight up above you, when you're running full speed, that's hard adjustments to make, and it's hard for guys like, hey, I never played football, but I understand that that's difficult. And I understand for some people it's hard to say, well, I've caught passes way above my head like that. Well, yeah, but you're not playing SEC football where a big safety at 6'1", 260 pounds may come crack you in the ribs. So remember that too. Brent, continue.
Another thing you mentioned, and that a lot of Tennessee fans have complained about, is the play calling this year. Whether or not Alex Golesh was involved as much as I think he was, the play calling is drastically different. I think that is more because we don't trust our 25-year-old quarterback to make throws. Receivers have not got the separation, and I think that's also connected to we don't run the complex plays and route trees that we did last year. And I hate comparing to last year. Everything I talk about I compare to last year, but that has just become the expectation after 1 year. So the play calling is a combination of we figured out that we can run the ball very well, but also our quarterback is not good. And what we've done, we treat Joe Milton like he's a freshman. We treat Joe Milton like he's a true freshman because that's how he plays. He runs out of bounds on free plays after a offsides call. Runs out of bounds. He runs out of bounds as time runs out to end the game against Ole Miss. He ran out of bounds on 4th and 2 Saturday. He can't get the team up on the line to run the ball. We had to call a timeout a minute and 20 seconds into the game because he couldn't get the team lined up after a play. After an incomplete pass, we couldn't get the team lined up. His football IQ is not there. He plays like you said. Vanderbilt has a foreign guy from like Russia or Germany or something that's like never played football. Yeah, that's what Joe Milton plays like. Joe Milton plays like some freak athlete from Russia who we brought in who has never played football. And I keep seeing all these tweets.
He has played.
I keep seeing all these tweets. Josh Heupel makes $10 million a year. Do you think he doesn't know who's best to play? No. He started Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker.
Yes.
He had Hendon Hooker on the roster and still went out and got Joe Milton off the transfer portal. And he started him over him, and now he's fell in love with him again. And I'm just going to go off. I'm not going to let you talk anymore, Joseph. Okay. Tennessee's 5-1. Name me one quarterback in Tennessee history that could not be 5-1 against the competition we've played this year. You have played. Hold on. Let me pull up the schedule. I try to forget this. Virginia, coming off a terrible year. Austin Peay, an FCS team. You lost to a bad Florida team. And then you beat a terrible UTSA, South Carolina, and a struggling A&M team. That's the easiest stretch of the season you're going to play, and you're 5-1. Any other quarterback in the last 10 years for Tennessee would be 5-1. But we had a stretch. We had a stretch after the Florida game, and I said on here, now is the time. After the Florida game is when I had this same conversation. Now is the time because you've got a home stretch and it's easy, and we didn't make the change. So now we're going to have to take another loss or two to make a change. And I understand the argument of not wanting to trust a true freshman to start at Alabama. But we're going to lose against Alabama with Joe Milton. He had 100 yards Saturday. Arguments against playing Nico. Nico is too small and will get hurt behind our offensive line. Our offensive line has allowed 9 sacks in 6 games. The only plays we run are screen passes and handoffs. Nico is 6'6", 200 pounds. He's not small. Oh, my goodness. The next argument against playing Nico, Joe Milton is capable. Joe Milton is 14th in the SEC in yards per attempt. In 6 games, he has 1,264 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 terrible interceptions, 61.5% completion percentage. So my question to any Tennessee fan that is mad at me right now, my question to you is this. Do you know ball? Have you watched Joe Milton play?
Has Britt been listening to me or something?
Have you watched Joe Milton play? And in 6 years, how much more do you need to see to know what Michigan fans have been telling us for 3 years, that Joe Milton sucks? And Tennessee is an 11-1 or a 10-2 team without Joe Milton. Give me Brady Cook. Tennessee's 11-1. Listen to this. Give me Jarrett Garantano, and Tennessee goes at least 9-3. But this team is going to go 8-4 because we are about to jump into the ocean that is the SEC, and we have a 300-pound stone around our neck, and his name is Joe Milton. And he's killing us. And people are going to say, oh, well, the locker room loves Joe Milton. His friends are on the – I don't care. Or what is this? Is this high school football? He's a grown-ass man that makes millions of dollars for sucking. And so how long are we going to let Joe Milton start at the University of Tennessee because he can throw an orange 100 yards? How long are we going to do it?
Britt Dillard, I don't know. One of 3 things happened this weekend. His heart got hurt, and just even in a win and he turned into me overnight, he went back and listened to some old podcast and turned into me, or he's just been hanging out with me too much. I don't know which one it is. It's one of the three there, but I don't disagree with a lot that Britt said. I do, however, disagree with the quote about having certain quarterbacks and going 11-1 and 9-3. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks you could have, and they struggle similar. I can't talk. They struggle in the same aspect as Joe Milton does. Maybe puts up a little bit better stats or does a little bit things better here or there, but still, I think that ultimately, although this quarterback or the main situation for this team is quarterback, I will say that. I think the main problem is Joe Milton. I said it preseason. I'm not changing my thought now. Thought the biggest question mark was Joe Milton. It still is. He is the problem, right? He is one of the main problems. Now, you're definitely missing Jalen Hyatt. You're definitely missing Alex Golish. You're definitely, you're missing some stuff. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, Joe Milton's not that guy. I will say this. And I said this when I was making some notes today, listening to some UT insiders or reporters, whatever you want to call them. As I was listening and reading some of their stuff, I think this is a problem. And Vanderbilt has it too. I don't think Joe Milton commands the offense. And Britt made a comment a few weeks ago on this podcast about Joe Milton and not being a great quarterback. And there is a lot of truth to that he is not a great quarterback. I think I want to say the same thing about A.J. Swann at Vanderbilt. And it's is that I don't know how much when he gets in the huddle, not only does he believe can he do it, but does the rest of the team believe that he's going to make the right reads, that he's going to look at the line of scrimmage and say, okay, that's the mic. Like, who's he calling out? Can he read the coverage pre-snap? When the defense makes adjustments, is he making adjustments with it? Is he going up and telling the offensive line that, we're changing the play? This look sucks. I don't know. I don't think that he is. I don't think Joe Milton's football IQ is very good. It's the same questions I had. I think they've come to fruition. I don't personally think Nico's the answer, but I don't think Nico's the answer because I don't think Nico was going to play that much better than Joe Milton. I think this is what happens. Nico comes in, he does flashy stuff, but he also does this thing that all freshmen do called stupid stuff. He's going to throw into triple teams. He's going to turn the ball over more than Milton. He's going to do stuff that you're probably not expecting him to do, and that's why I don't know if I'm for sure if Nico's the better option. However, if you lose to Bama, and then you turn around and lose to Missouri
Kentucky.
the following week, correct, Britt? No?
Kentucky, I think.
Kentucky.
I could be wrong. Yeah, it's Kentucky.
I don't see Tennessee losing to Kentucky. But if you turn it, let's just say you lose to Bama, and then you lose to Missouri before you play Georgia. Is there anything wrong with starting Nico then? You're out of playoff contention. You're out of NY6 bowls once you've lost 3 games. So the best bowl games are done, and you're not going to make the playoff. Is there anything wrong with starting Nico then? And I don't know this for sure, but how many games has Nico played in?
He's thrown maybe 10 passes, and that's what infuriates me.
But how many games has he played in? I was looking at this for red shirt purposes. Because if they don't think this kid's ready, they're not burning his red shirt.
Okay, that's the thing. And I've said it before. If Nico isn't ready and Joe Milton is playing as terrible as he is, if I'm the university, I am broadcasting that everywhere. Nico is not ready. They haven't said that. And that's the thing.
I don't know if that's the play though.
We have all held Josh Heupel as the quarterback whisperer, and he goes and gets the number 2 guy in the nation, a 5-star quarterback. You cannot tell me that he would do worse than Joe Milton is right now. You could not tell me that. And if he is, guess what? He's got 2 more years to figure it out. He's not 24 years old. We don't owe Joe Milton anything. He is starting because he stayed around when Hendon Hooker was so much better than him. He is starting because he can throw an orange 120 yards. He is not starting because he's the best option. And I don't think Josh Heupel has it in him. I don't think he has it in him, but it's the excuses that kill me. Squirrel White has 0 touchdowns this year. He is open every play. He has 0 touchdowns this year. It's infuriating. And why are we wasting our time with this guy?
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's
It is
so,
frustrating.
and it's
I
it's the
don't
same.
disagree.
It's the same thing as having Butch Jones as a coach and Jeremy Pruitt as a coach and Derek Dooley as a coach. They're losers. You know it's not going to work out. And so for all the people that are mad right now, come back to me in a month and a half and see what our record is. Come back to me and tell me I was right, because I will be. And I hate it. I'm mad because I see the vision, like Kanye. I see the vision to us
Hang, baby.
not going 11-1, but let's go 9-3 with our quarterback of the future instead of 8-4 with this deadweight anchor who we're never going to talk about again after this year.
I will also say that, Britt said Nico's only got 2 years. That's if Nico plays great. Nico could easily play till he's a senior. I mean, there's tons of quarterbacks that stay that extra year. Nico would have to ball absolutely out to leave as a junior. That's just what you have to do. I don't really see that. Nico would have to be the chosen one in order to leave his junior year, and I don't see that happening. So if you can preserve it, yeah, to me, I would almost say roll with Nico too, because I don't think Joe Milton's very good. But then again, if he pulls the plug on Milton and then Nico throws 3 picks every game the rest of the year, and then Nico's confidence is down, there's several different things. There's a lot that looks into a quarterback change. First of all, confidence for Nico's future. As much as him sitting on the bench may hurt his confidence, which I doubt because he's just a true freshman, and coming in, he's still learning everybody, learning the playbook, learning what Heupel likes to do, learning his teammates, how to become a leader, which is very, very important when you're the quarterback. Doing a lot of stuff. It's a lot better for him to be on the sidelines learning things than out in the field looking like a fool and just destroying his self-confidence and destroying him being a quarterback. So I think there are pros and cons to both sides, but I do want to defend Britt here to 100%. I'm not disagreeing with him. I would like to say that if I was in Britt's position, I would probably be barking the same thing. But remember, Tennessee fans, you're 5-1, okay? 4 years ago, you were in the shadows, okay? You were in the depths of hell, all right? You were coming off a winless SEC season. That was in 19, correct, Britt? Just to make sure I'm not getting my years wrong here. You were coming off.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. One of those years a few years ago, you were losing and you did a lot and you didn't win an SEC game. So with all that being said, if you are Tennessee, you 100% vouch for the correct call to be made by Heupel. I also like that Britt questions if Heupel was picking the correct starter. I question that with Lee at times in secondary and other positions. He did start Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker once. So, there's that.
I think if there's a Tennessee fan that says they're okay with Joe Milton because Tennessee is 5-1, that's a loser. That's a loser mentality. Tennessee with an above average or even an average quarterback beats Florida, and they're 6-0, and they're looking at that game at Alabama as completely winnable. And you're looking at going 11-1. You're looking at the ceiling even. And for those that are still fighting for Joe Milton, I just have to ask why. What have you seen from Joe Milton to make you think that he's good? Yes, he can throw the ball a ton. Yes, he looks amazing. He looks like Cam Newton. He doesn't run like Cam Newton. That man's scared to death of contact. He can't throw like, I don't think Cam Newton's known as a great thrower, but he can't throw like Cam Newton either. He's not good. So why? Why don't you want your team to excel? Why are you happy with the loss against Florida? Because if you say you ride with Joe Milton, that means you're happy with losing to this Florida team. This Florida team that is not good.
Not necessarily true, but I understand the point you're trying to get to.
I'm just saying we had an opportunity, and now it's going to take 1 or 2 more losses, which are going to happen for the change to happen.
No. I get it. I get the frustration. Also,
and
Britt,
this
can
is
you see
not.
Me right now?
No, I
Out of straight
can't.
technical
And this
difficulties question. Okay.
This is not the most popular player on the team's the backup quarterback. No, I rode with Joe. I had him in my Twitter name. I wanted Joe to be so good, but he's not. And if he was a freshman, I would understand, but he's not a freshman. So let's not treat him as such. He's a grown ass man. There are starting quarterbacks in the NFL that are years younger than Joe Milton. So let's stop treating him like he's a child. Let's stop acting like Nico wasn't the second best recruit in the country. And I mean, crap, if we love Josh Heupel and trust him as much as everyone likes to think they do, what has Nico been doing for 10 months? It's not like he just walked in the door. He's been learning for 10 months. He's not a child. He's not a baby. And if you don't like what I'm saying, turn it off. I don't care. If you don't like what I'm saying, you don't know ball and you're a loser. I can't hear you.
My bad here. I said that's my quote. I like that. You don't know ball, or you do know ball, and you are a loser. Obviously, if you're okay with losing, or if you stick up for losers. So I don't disagree with Brett. Enough about Joe Milton, though. We've already approached an hour here. We haven't even gotten to the Alabama game at all. So with all of that being said, UT did beat Texas A&M 20-13. By the way, I made a little same pick parlay for Tennessee. If you listened to that on this podcast, you did hit. The under was always safe, baby, and a Tennessee victory -2. So moving on, Tennessee travels to Alabama this weekend. I have to be very careful with my picks here. 6-0 when picking Tennessee this week, as Britt said earlier. Britt, going in, your fiance's team against your team. Cliche, I've got the license plate. Obviously kidding. House divided, baby. What's the early thoughts of Alabama versus Tennessee?
The early thoughts are, with my lovely fiance being an Alabama fan, I will not be in the doghouse Saturday night. I will be the one who is sad. And let me just say this. I love Tennessee football so much. I genuinely love Tennessee football more than a lot of things that I shouldn't love it more than. I spend a lot of money, time, and angst on Tennessee football. I love Tennessee football. I don't love Joe Milton. My allegiance is not to Joe Milton. So anyone who questions that, turn it off. We'll see.
See ya.
Okay. Saying that, the keys to the game, same as last week. Defense, play like you did Saturday. Offensive line and running backs, run the ball. And limit turnovers. If those three things happen, which they did Saturday, you give yourself a chance against an Alabama team who is not as good as they have been in the past. A team that is still very talented and very well coached and playing in their home stadium.
This Alabama team is not stellar. With that being said, my key number one is Tennessee have 0 turnovers. I think if Tennessee turns the ball over once, I don't think they win this game because I don't believe that Alabama will turn the ball over. I think they're going to have a relatively safe game plan with Jalen Milroe, easy throws, run the football, score when they can, and ultimately stop UT from scoring. I see another really low-scoring game here, similar to what you saw last week with A&M. So key number one is Tennessee have no turnovers, aka win the turnover battle. Very cliche, but very true. Second of all, establish the run early and often. Hand it off to Jalen Wright. Hand it off to actually Sampson did not have a very good game last week, but hand it off to the backs. Whoever, honestly, you can give the ball to that's a fresh set of legs, give it to them. Let the O-line create holes and see what you can do early in the game. With that being said, key number 3 is going to be very important. Once again, this is keys to victory, baby. So if Tennessee wants to have a chance to win, set up the run early, play action, Joe Milton goes deep. If he can take the top off Alabama's defense 3 or 4 times, Tennessee will win this football game. And you heard it here first that I think if he takes the top off just 3 or 4 times, if the play calls are there, you have to establish the run early. And Josh Heupel, some of this is on him. Listen, if he's calling different plays because he doesn't trust Joe Milton, as much as Britt Dillard wants to be on here, and I'm not hating on Britt by any means, but as much as he wants to blame Joe Milton, just as much blame is on Josh Heupel for starting him and not calling a different offense because he's scared because he doesn't trust his quarterback. So Heupel, that's not good coaching. And if you are holding back some play calls, you're not listening to this, so I don't know why I'm lecturing you. But if you are holding back play calls because you don't trust your quarterback, that is pitiful coaching and coward coaching. But number 3 is take the deep shots. You have to draw them up, and Joe Milton's got to let them fly. If it's one-on-one, give Dante Thornton a chance. Go give him a chance. Give Ramel Keaton a chance. Because it's your only hope to win this game. Establish the run, take the top off with play action.
Yeah, the line of scrimmage is so huge in this game. If I'm Alabama, I'm stacking the box. You're not going to run all over me. We're going to make Joe Milton make throws. That's what I'm doing if I'm Alabama. And they may have enough talent to do it, but I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen a team stop Tennessee running the ball yet. And I think that's Josh Heupel. I think there's too much of a threat. I mean, you think Josh Heupel's going to be scared to just throw it over your head? You're crazy. And maybe you've let your guard down after his performance this year. But the line of scrimmage is the main point of this game, and Tennessee's running game. But I mean, I'm going to be balled up. I'm going to be rooting and cheering and mad when we don't do well. If we don't do well, and so I'm going to have to what's the word? I'm going to have to rein in all my emotions and all my disgust with the decisions of this coaching staff. And I'm going to have to ball up because I'm not stupid. So I will be balled up.
Ultimately, Britt is not. Listen, I've been the number one advocate of this on my side of things with Vanderbilt. Ultimately, just because Britt is hating on Joe Milton, on play calls, on this, on that, doesn't mean that Britt doesn't love Tennessee. He just sees the vision differently. And that is completely fine. At the end of the day, Britt, I know more than anyone, maybe shouldn't say more than anyone, but I know that Britt wants Tennessee to win the national championship, just as bad as any other UT fan that I know. So that being said, if you're mad, you're dumb.
What I'm Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar when he's in the spaceship and he's looking back down at Earth at himself make a terrible decision. That's me. I'm looking down at Josh Heupel saying, "Ooh, after the Florida game, we're going to play UTSA. Let's leave Joe in there." And I'm banging on the window of the spaceship. No, stop! I'm mad. I'm screaming. I'm hitting the windows. Don't do it. You've done it. You've already done it twice. This guy's terrible.
Also,
that's me. That's me.
Let me say this as well. If Tennessee wants a shot in this game, they need to eclipse 28 minutes time of possession. Eclipse 28 minutes. If you see that in the box score with 2 minutes to go or so in this game, and they're at like 27 minutes, I think that means Tennessee's right there to win it. And, they may not, but I think that means it's a really close game if you see that.
I told my fiance this, and yes, we do talk ball. I told her this. I said, Tennessee's defensive line is going to eat Alabama's offensive line. Tennessee's going to be in the backfield. They're going to stop the run. I think the number is 21. I think Tennessee can hold Alabama to 21. Do I think Tennessee can score 21? Not without special teams, no. Not with Joe Milton, no. But 21's the number. 21's the number.
Britt, you know what time it is, man. Keys to victory out of the way. Breakdown is done. It's time for the prediction. Tennessee versus Alabama on this Saturday, the third Saturday in October in Tuscaloosa. What do you got, brother?
Unfortunately, I've got 24-10 Alabama.
That is very, very similar to my prediction. And
that's called taking data as a scientist would and making a prediction. That's a hypothesis.
She's got that hypothesis. Brent said that, and I almost want to change my prediction, but I ain't going
No,
to.
what is it?
I had Bama 24, Tennessee 13. And I think, listen, if you're thinking about betting on this game, stop thinking about it. But I think Vegas knows exactly what both of these teams are. That 9.5 is dangerous. You are flirting with absolute danger.
Yeah. That's a good line.
I would stay far away from this game.
That's
So
the correct line.
24-13, Alabama Crimson Tide wins. I do have them covering. And this could be the end, but I just don't see it. I agree. I think that definitely play calling has been way different for Tennessee this year. I've questioned, as a bystander, Heupel at times. What was he thinking? Like, it's 3rd and 9 and you draw up. Like, the main target of the play was 2 yards, and you only had one guy actually run past the first down marker, which was a play that actually happened against A&M. I should have clipped it so I knew the play. But, like, Heupel, that's just not a good play call. You gave Joe Milton one chance to throw it past the first down marker. That's it. So although Milton may not make the throws, you're not putting him in a position to succeed either for Heupel or whoever called that play. So I do question that at times, but we'll see what happens this weekend. I like Bama. That's where I'll end it.
Yeah, and if you look at really the past 2 Tennessee games, Vegas and the analytics have had it exactly right. I mean, I think Tennessee opened up as a 14-point favorite over South Carolina, and you're like, dang, that's kind of high. But it kind of kept rising. And then you look at A&M, Tennessee -3. But if you look closer at the computer models where they actually predict the final score, both of them are very, very close. So I don't know if Tennessee is just that predictable. But I've said all year that this game is a loss. I've said all year that Georgia was way more winnable than Alabama, just because your history on the road, and not to harp on it, but Joe Milton, it's not a good matchup.
Yeah, and Georgia, I would say, is worse than we thought they were going to be preseason. So I think I would agree with the preseason take that Georgia is a much more winnable game, especially because it's at Neyland.
Yeah, and
it is.
Alabama. Okay.
Go ahead. No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Alabama. Their loss to Texas was due to Quinn Ewers being able to just absolutely uncork the ball and throw it over their head. Tennessee's not doing that to anybody. Tennessee doesn't have the receivers or the quarterback or the play calling to do that this year, and that's what I've told the people all week. I mean, do you hate talking to people at church about football? I do, because
I don't love it.
I consume so much football. I consume so much football that I don't like talking about it, which is surprising that I even do this podcast. But I guess it's because I feel like I'm just talking to you. But last year and this year are complete opposite. I don't trust the quarterback. I don't trust the receivers. And I don't trust the coaching. And they were all completely flipped last year. It sucks. And I trust the defense. So, touche. Let's move on.
Let's get into it. Speaking of bets, talking about what to stay away from, let's talk about what to get into, Britt. This week, I'm going to be the over-under guy. I didn't love a lot of the spreads. I loved a lot of the over-unders. So that's going to be where I'm going to stick this week. Very first game, I'm going to go Big Ten. Give me Penn State and Ohio State under 52. That game, I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring game. You're going to see something like 24-17, maybe a 28-17, but I don't think it even gives above 45. So I would, flirt with anything in the high 40s too. Next game, Northwestern at Nebraska. I've got under 48.5. I'm in love with the Big Ten this week and the unders. Once again, neither team is very good. I think this is another low-scoring defensive game. Another Big Ten game, another Big Ten on Big Ten matchup, Michigan at Michigan State. Give me over 44.5. Michigan is going to probably hang that themselves. They've been blowing everybody out. They blow out inferior competition this year. I like Michigan and Michigan State over 44.5. Next game, Washington State at Oregon, 2:30 game, Oregon minus 16.5. Oregon bounce back game. They're pissed. They had a chance to kick a game time field goal against Washington, didn't hit it. Some questionable coaching decisions by Dan Lanning. So I think they bounce back hard and win big over Washington State. And finally, Minnesota at Iowa. I got Iowa money line. That spread is at 3.5. It is fluctuated right there. I do not like the points. Just take the money line. If you bet on that, I threw literally $5 on it. Pays out $88.05. So hey, go get you a piece of the pie, baby.
I like those. I like that Michigan
Thank you,
bet.
sir.
I bet the Michigan under last week, and it made me look like an idiot. But I went 3 for 5 last week, up to 16 points. Joseph, you went 1 for 5, up to 20 points. So
Yeah,
catching up to you.
I had a brutal week betting again last week outside of the UT game. I'm so sorry to people. I'm about to bounce back though.
Okay, I like Alabama -9 at home against Tennessee. I'm the favorite man. Okay, that's me. I got Missouri -7 versus South Carolina. I've got Clemson -4 at Miami. Clemson's kind of found themselves. Miami sucks. Tennessee at Alabama under 49 points. That's not happening unless Alabama scores 42 points. Duke at Florida State over 49.5. That's my 5.
I like them. I like that.
That's my 5.
Obviously, Vanderbilt going into the bye week this week. So in case you're wondering why we didn't talk about them, they have no game. We'll be following up with Ole Miss after that. Also, just a weird tidbit here. Vanderbilt does have another bye week. The week before we played the Tennessee Vols, we will have another bye week. That's weird things about playing in week 0. So that's just a little weird tidbit to throw in there.
Tennessee fans, sorry if I brought you down, but there's one thing on this podcast that I strive not to do, and that's be a normie. I don't want to be a sheep. I don't want to just accept everything that my coach does. I'm smart enough. I'm a grown man that I can have my own opinion. So I'm sure if there's anywhere to share it, it's right here. So I'm just laying it out.
Okay. I respect it a lot. And like I said, I mean, me and Britt, don't get me wrong, we don't always agree. But I think that, I think where he's at, we actually agree with. We just see it a little bit differently. I don't think Milton's the guy. I said it preseason. If you have watched Tennessee play football this year, and you don't think Joe Milton is one of like top 2 problems on this team, I'm questioning if you do know ball, because I don't think that you do. And that's just where we're gonna leave it. Listen. Episode 1 of 2 of Where's the Line? We brought the heat. We brought the analytics. We brought the passion. Britt brought the emotion. He's been listening to me too much. He's getting fired up. Tennessee's 5-1. Going to go into Bama, see what they're going to do. Anchor down. Go Doors, baby. You know what it is. Like I said, we're on the trend. We going up.
Go Vols. Let's prove me wrong. Let's lift my spirits. Let's give me something called hope and something more important called joy. Go
Hope
Vols.
springs eternal. Anchor down.
Yes.